Now, with the emergence of 5 candidates today, along with PDP's Abubakar Atiku and the Labour Party's Peter Obi, the presidential field for the 2023 election is taking shape. While joining us to discuss this, Rise analyst Frank Tietie and Chika Ogeah. Let's start with you, Chika, in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you gentlemen. Any surprises with the emergence of Bola Tinubu for you? What exactly do you think? Did he even sell himself well enough to the delegates, to Nigerians, in a way that actually inspired them to vote for him? Chike.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Bola Tinubu, that's an old war horse, a Trojan war horse. And he's been the issue in Nigerian politics, more or less since 1999. Even when the great clear out of the West was done, the Southwest, as it were, in 2003, when there was that massive tsunami that got rid of all the governors. You remember he survived it. And ever since then, he has built a formidable structure in Lagos. So anybody that takes a Bola Tinubu for granted, does not know the first thing about politics. Like they said, what we saw in that convention was politics 101 at work. Truth be told, it wasn't as if anybody expected it to be a stroll in the park the way it came out. We know that conventions are usually full of surprises, but personally, I thought there would be much more more resistance, and there will be more. At least I had given both the vice president and Rotimi Amechi a fighting chance to at least giving Asiwaju a push to the finishing line. But as it were, we just saw a complete blowout, and you're going to ask what was responsible for that? What were the reasons that gave rise to that kind of thing? And if you're a student of history, you realize that it's not far-fetched. This is a man who has built, like I said, a formidable structure from the 5th biggest economy in Africa. If Lagos State was a country in Africa, Lagos State would be the 5th biggest economy in Africa. So you can imagine what we're talking about, and he's had a stranglehold on the politics of this state for that, this long, which is like 20 years. He has put, I think it was his former Commissioner of Information that told you that he put together a 25-year master plan, which has been developed by very brilliant governors ever since he left, because I think that's part of the strategy. Bring in young men who are very brilliant, who are more or less private sector, not very politically savvy. He sits back and makes sure that, part of things is being taken care of. This is a man that the greatest aspect of his structures, what they call structure in Nigeria, are the human capital he has developed and he has put in high positions all over the country. And these are very competent people, especially in Lagos State. And we see them now moving all across the Southwest. Some of them has even gone into the government. When the APC took over the federal government, they moved on to Abuja. I think to a large extent, we cannot say we are totally surprised by this. But like it is just halftime yet. Nigeria should be looking forward to maybe one of the most exciting presidential races, because a Bola Tinubu versus an Atiku Abubakar, I can assure you that would be something to look at, because they both basically have the same kind of antecedents, if you know what I mean.
Yes, indeed. Some have said these are going to be 2 lions in the den who will pull the other down. Frank Tietie, what are your thoughts? The question is, can Tinubu actually beat Atiku at the polls at the end of the day? And really, what do you think the issues now should be going forward, up to the February 2023 elections?
Well, thank you very much. Tinubu deserved the win. He earned it, and at the time it seemed very far from him, because there were uncertainties with announcements and counter announcements, and Tinubu proved that over the years that the work he did in trying to reach out beyond divides, that work has now paid out for him. going forward, many Nigerians receive the emergence of Tinubu, first the emergence of Atiku, and now Tinubu, with a lot of mixed feelings, because a large section of the country believes that there should be a change from the regular political class products, the elitist members like Bola Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar, who actually have a sort of camaraderie that exists between them. And when the northern governors blazed the trail, an unprecedented historical position they took when they said power must shift from the north to the south, a contradiction which is very hopeful for Nigeria, in considering what happened in 1953, when northern leaders actually left Lagos with annoyance, swearing and cursing that they were never going to be part of Nigeria and that it was just going to be on their own. It took Herbert Macaulay, Nnamdi Azikiwe to persuade them with a lot of campaigns, and even at that, they were met with stiff resistance. You recall the famous 1953 Kano riot. Yes. That is the extent to which northern Nigerian leaders at the time didn't want to be part of Nigeria. Now, these same northern Nigerian leaders in another era now believe that they have to make sacrifices, even though they bandy quite a large set of numbers that they have in terms of voting strength to determine who becomes president. They decided unanimously, that they were going to shift power to the south. Credit must go to people like Governor El Rufai, who has been very stoically, resolute in that position. And even when he received tremendous pressure to pick the form, the seemingly cheap APC 100 million naira form in quote, he did not. And so that engendered a lot of hope that things would change in favor of a personality like Vice President Yemi Osibajo. So Tinubu supporters were in the tenterhooks, a reason why there was so much fanfare when he eventually was declared. So right. That third section of Nigeria, with the emergence of Tinubu and Atiku being the major flag bearers of the major political parties, will now lead to emergence of a possible coalition between smaller political parties to tackle this, because the hope will be fallen if that is not done among these Nigerians. Let
me take it to Chika then. Speaking of other parties, NNPP, Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso has emerged, the presidential candidate of that party. Of course, we know that Peter Obi is the flag bearer for the Labour Party, and on and on and on. These parties, NNPP, or even the personalities themselves, Rabiu Kwankwaso, for example, how much of a spoiler do you think it would be for either of the two largest parties? How much of a chance does he even stand?
Well, you use the correct word, the spoiler, and that has always been my fear, because the truth is that the PDP and the APC are the two major parties. And the best that we can do at this point in the development of our democracy is to have what I would call a potent third force. And that third force has to be an aggregation of all these other parties. The minute they become fractious the way they are now, even in the Labour Party, we are seeing a situation where, Peter Obi had emerged as a candidate for one of the parties. And I think today some other one for CHAP or so has emerged for another faction in the same Labour Party. Same thing goes for NNPP. Kwankwaso and his Kwankwasia movement, we know how potent they are. Kanu has a lot of votes. The Northwest generally, maybe a little bit of Jigawa as well. That used to be the old Kanu state, that kind of sphere of influence. But the truth is that, like you rightly said, the best that can happen is that they will just take away the votes that maybe an Atiku should have gotten. And the same kind of thing might happen in the South, where a Peter Obi factor, because all of a sudden Peter Obi's, his campaign has really revved up, and, especially young Nigerians seems to have keyed on to this new kind of leader, the kind of leadership that I think Malik Adu Ibrahim was talking about earlier on, that this country needs someone that can handle it like a CEO. We have to come from that template now. Enough of this old politics and all of that.
Great. Very
so
quickly,
if you ask me,
Frank
I think
Tietie, thank you very much, Chika. Frank
Yes.
Tietie, Malik Ado Ibrahim, does he resonate? I mean, you heard him moments ago. What do you make of him and others like him?
You know, what's important for our country is that we get a leader that can unify us and give us the hope that we can exist beyond these trying times. Nigeria has gone through a horrendous period of divisive politics of exclusion that has seen it's been tried not like any other time, like we had in the Civil War, where we had secessionist movement both in the East and in the West. So what's important is for the country to build a philosophy that can be believed in by the citizens to the extent that they'll be proud to say they are Nigerians. At this time, to think that prosperity and economic stability is what we need, yes, but preceding that is to a greater measure of the political stability, which lies in the need for the federating units, the federating ethnic nationalities to believe in this country. As we speak, we are just managing a country. People need to believe in it. We're lacking a national ethos. That's a major problem. So we need a leader that can rally and galvanize all of us to believe in this country in order for us to move forward.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, Arise News will be putting the searchlight on such leaders if indeed they will emerge. Chika, Ogeah, Frank Tietie, thank you both gentlemen for joining us on Newsnight.